Okay, so we're going to begin, and I want to start with the major arcana, and you can see the cards here. I'm going to go through them one by one and talk to you about the meanings and the impressions I have from the cards. And the differences between the cards, that I mentioned it briefly in the introduction, but the major arcana cover major life cycles. They're periods of time. They can be anywhere from a month to 6 months to sometimes a couple of years. So they are talking about cycles in your life. The minor arcana talk about our temporary situations, things that are passing in our moment, in the days we're in the week or two we're in, maybe a month. Now, everything is always influenced based upon the combination cards and how they're relating to each other. And so as I describe the cards and my impressions of them, I will give you some ideas and some ways that I have seen them make sense in general, but it will always be based upon the question you have, the question the person you're reading for has, and of course, where it falls in the spread. And we'll talk about spreads more later. So let's get started and you'll see what I mean. The Fool, now this is called the zero card because the Fool can be the beginning or the end. The cards go up to 21. The world is number 21. But the Fool is really, from my point of view, a choice moment. And it's a moment when we have decided something and we are embarking on a train of thought or even a physical journey of some sort or a physical change. I think the point about the Fool is that the manifestation maybe you're looking for to occur hasn't yet occurred, but you are really centered and grounded in your point of view. And, you know, the Fool doesn't need anyone's approval or for them to agree with their position. They have a core sense of well-being, and they know that the direction they're going in is right for them at that moment. So, and even in the picture, you can see the person is at the edge of the cliff, right? But still they're looking up. They're not looking down, looking at the placement of their feet. And then when you have animals in the picture, especially in this one, you know, even the little doggy looks joyful. And so there's no issue here. But of course, then you see the little knapsack on the rod. And that does tell us that we're moving in a direction and we may need some sustenance. So it is, to me, this is always a beginning. It's always a personal point of choice that we've arrived at a point of view, and we're taking action on that point of view, whether people agree with us or not. The Magician, card number 1, to me, this is one of the most positive cards in the deck, because the first meaning of this card is you are going in the right direction. So if you're looking for a yes or no answer, or you're looking at, is this the right job? Is this the right relationship? Should I stay in this? Should I try this new venture? The answer is yes. If that's what you're looking for, a yes or no, the Magician is a definitive yes. But the Magician is so much more than that, because it represents a person with a lot of creativity and heart and love and passion. And it represents a cycle in your life where you're using and drawing upon those abilities. Now, it could be related to the person that you are, or the person that you're reading, or the situation that you're in, but it really reeks of abundance and being on the right path and making good choices and have the wherewithal to continue to have good things happen because of your decisions and your talents. So really a wonderful card. The High Priestess is an interesting card, as you'll see, we'll come up to the Empress and the Emperor coming up. But the High Priestess really signals, I don't want to say secrets, but there's a lot about unknown. It's a lot of relying on instincts. Sometimes we can see this as a person or a series of people in our life who we go to for counsel, and that we can listen to their good advice. And sometimes it is a feminine information or vibration that we're listening to. So this does talk about, the high priestess is someone with wisdom, with courage, with experience, who has our best interest. If it's not a person, it is an energy. And of course, when this comes up, because it is a major arcana card, we're kind of in something. We're trying to figure something out. We're trying to get through something going on in our experience. But it does also suggest that someone in our life, or a situation we're associated with, is acting in our best interest. And so if we have an instinct or an intuition about something, that we want to follow it. If it's a person, then you're going to a woman for counsel. Now, not to flatter myself per se, but I would say in some instances, I could represent the high priestess. So if someone comes to me for counsel or coaching on a circumstance, I'm going to have their best interest. I'm going to give them the benefit of my experience or knowledge. So I could fit into that role, for instance, if it were a person. Okay. If it's not a person, it's just the energies of wisdom and intuition and following that. And it's going to likely be on the feminine. Feminine energies, of course, are nurturing, supportive, negotiating, peace-loving, that type of energy. Male energy would be more solve it, fix it, right? Okay. All right, so here we go with the Empress. This is also a very positive card too, but it can also indicate change, a fair amount of change. This is the card that often would signal someone's going to move into a cycle of pregnancy or marriage. It's really abundance on so many forms. And given with Pentacle cards, or sometimes a 2 of Wands or a 3 of Wands, it can signal a business adventure starting to blossom, something that will be highly abundant in your life. But this is the divine feminine at her best. And so this is a card of fertility, marriage, children, growth, abundance. If it's not the physical manifestation of a child or a marriage, then it just promises that abundance in all forms is going to come to you in whatever practice you're doing, whatever path you're on at the moment in your life. So again, some of the interpretation will be based upon what the question is, but this is a very positive influence card. The Emperor, to me, has a heavier texture to it, a heavier quality. It's not negative by any stretch, but it's the counterpart to the Empress, which is male energy. And just as you know, when you have two parents, the feminine and the masculine parent, the woman is always gentler on the child than the man, traditionally speaking. The man is much more matter of fact and strict typically, and the woman is more giving and forgiving, right? And the same is true with the Emperor here, that he can give good counsel and support, but he tends to be much more matter of fact. And so that speaks to the energies as well. So if this were a man, an actual person who's influencing your life at this time, typically I see this more as a boss, someone in the workplace, or it could be a parent, someone who has authority over you, but typically it is someone who does have influence and authority over you and that you're going to listen to. And sometimes the advice and the insight they give you can be a little harsh. I mean, it could be hard to hear, but it doesn't mean it's negative. Sometimes people tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And I think the energy is like that with this card. Now, like the Empress, with the 2 of Wands or even the 3 of Wands, this can signal a new opportunity being imminent in your life, that you're going to get a new job offer or some benevolent, positive change is coming pretty quickly, and it's usually work related. The Hierophant, this is an interesting card because I think this often reflects the reader more than it does, not the reader, the person who's reading for themselves. So if I were to pull this card, it would represent me to me, and that I have an unconventional lifestyle. I'm spiritually driven. That's my first order of thought and any choice that I always think about a spiritual perspective first before I think of any other perspective. And so that means that the person you're dealing with likely has that energy to them, or that the path you're taking right now has some unconvention to it. But if it's a person, it means that they have some respect, they have people admire them in some way, and that the information they have, again, it's going to be spiritually oriented. It may not be a traditional idea. So and again, if it's not a spiritual type person, it could be someone, let's say you work for someone, and let's say you're in the real estate business, and there's a traditional way you go out and list a property and show it and take an offer and present it and sell it. Let's say this person has a different strategy, that they only want to market online, that they're not going to go show houses anymore, or that it's a by appointment only, or something different about how the process has been traditionally done. It can be that type of unconventionality. And so if this comes up again based upon the question, it would say the person is going to employ unconventional ideas, or they want to go with the flow of unconventionality. But again, this card to me is more rooted in spiritual unconventionality than anything else. The Lover's card, to me, always signals that there is some type of question or concern about a love relationship. In traditional meanings, it talks about choice, but in relationships, romantic and otherwise, it's always a choice. You choose every day whether or not to be involved with a person. You choose whether or not you're going to accept something that comes about in a relationship, whether it's personal or professional. We choose, and we work things out to either stay or not stay in a situation. So to me, this always centers around some type of relationship, and it's typically romantic, but a lot will be determined based upon the cards that are around it. And I'm just want to remind you again that major arcana cards are not temporary cards. They talk about a situation you're working on in your life. And we all know that to shift our awareness and to get to a new state, a new point of reference in our life, it takes a little doing. I mean, it really takes us a while to wake up to points of view. So the major arcana, it could be a month, it could be 6 months, it could be up to 2 years. And again, the minor arcana will clue you in to the time frame. The Chariot is, to me, another personal card, meaning, and the traditional meaning is that you're managing a lot of energies pulling in 2 different directions or in multiple directions. But it talks about a time of mastery of your own energy, that, yeah, there's a lot going on, but part of the journey for you at this moment is to really learn how to master the energies, and that you're fully capable. Sometimes I talk to clients who are like, oh my gosh, I have so much on my plate. How am I going to get through this? I don't know if I can. And if so, in that type of sharing, if this card were to come up, it would be indicative that this person has everything it takes to master the moment they're in and come out as a chariot, standing tall. The animals are now sitting down. You've mastered the moment. You've got the energies to surrender to your will. So it's a good card, but it does talk about a lot of energy in general being expended. The Strength card, to me, has a lot to do with relationships, and it can be romantic, it can be professional, it can be family life, it can be friendship. But this card always talks to me about using diplomacy, using ways to get along with people. I mean, the traditional meaning of this card is feed them honey and then you will win. So, I mean, a lot of times when we feel triggered or upset in a situation, we have a knee-jerk reaction. We want to get somebody back, or we want to prove our point, or something that gives us a temporary sense of gratification over the situation or the person. But this talks about taking a different approach, that rather figuring out how you can bring the bees to honey. How can you get the animal, the raging animal, to to see your point of view. And so it does take a lot of strength to hold your temper, to hold your point of view until you develop a strategy, if you will, to come at it so that it has a benevolent outcome. So this is an inner strength building card, but it often is brought about by some situation that's happening in your life in some relationship. The Hermit, again, this can have different meanings depending upon the question, because sometimes it can represent what's going on in a situation or a person you're dealing with. And again, it just depends on the question. But typically, this talks about someone who's going through something, and you're having to keep your own counsel, that you either may not be sure who you can trust, or you're just needing to hunker down and really hear your own voice, to hear your own point of view about something that's going on, and figuring out really how to get yourself out of it. And sometimes we don't even want anyone else's point of view. It's not like we're trying to, oh, I want to be alone, leave me alone, or maybe it is a little bit of that, but it's really about, I want to sort this on my own. And it is a step in self-confidence. It's a step towards self-awareness. It's a step towards self-mastery. So in many ways, it's a very positive card for personal growth and development. Now, if you were talking about a relationship question, I'll deal with that first. Sometimes it represents someone in your life who is having difficulty coming toward you, but they really want to, and they're trying to find their way, that you're really under their skin, if you will. In business, this could be, again, you marching to the beat of your own drummer. It's really that simple. So yeah, this is overall a positive card, but it's a solitary card. The Wheel of Fortune is really that. There's ups and downs, ups and downs. When you're down, you're going to go up. When you're up, you're going to go down. There's a lot of combination cards that go with this particular major arcana card, which give timing of events. Yeah, I mean, a lot of timing predictions can come through the use of this card. Say like the Six of Swords gives you an assurance that you're moving away from money troubles, and soon everything will rearrange. A Four of Cups with the Wheel of Fortune tells us within 2 weeks, whatever the question is, you're going to have an answer, or it's going to turn around. The Seven of Cups with the Wheel of Fortune really talks about opportunities coming forward. So depending upon what the question is or the person you're reading for, you know, it can be extremely positive if you see the Seven of Cups with the Wheel of Fortune, that things are really starting to, you're coming up on the up cycle to digest a lot of good things. But this is a roller coaster situation depending upon the question and where it falls in the spread. The Justice card, truly, I've had this come up when I've been in legal situations. So it does come forward when there is legal situations happening in your life or a person's life, that there is some legal situation going on that needs to be solved. However, it can also come up in relationship to something else going on in your life, a work situation, something with a friendship, something in a romantic relationship, because the traditional meaning of this card is that what you have earned, you will receive. So this is a moment the universe brings things into balance. And so that doesn't always feel great, even though balance is restored, we have clarity, but sometimes we do have to go through a little bit of a war, whether it's personal, professional, or in our family, to get to a new place. But it does talk about goodness prevailing, the right situation prevailing, but you do have to have the stamina to get through that. So, you know, it's a positive card in terms of ultimately what it means, but, you know, there's work involved. The Hanged Man, this is a spiritual surrender card pretty much every time. If this is paired with the Two of Pentacles or the Eight of Pentacles, it can talk about new opportunities coming forward or being imminent. It can talk about, you know, sort of managing a moment you're in and that soon it will rearrange. And I think sometimes with these these life surrender cards where you're kind of going through it, and maybe something you wanted you didn't get. And so you're coming to terms with that. But as you come to terms with that, you do get a new awareness. And I think sometimes when the minor arcana are paired with a card like this, you're having a moment. And so it's helpful to get some timing cards. It's helpful to see the energy moving. So, but overall, this talks about, this is a spiritual moment you're in. There's a lesson to be learned. And the sooner you digest it, the sooner you're going to feel better. And whatever is troubling you at this moment won't trouble you any longer. The death card rarely, if ever, signifies physical death from my point of view, but it's always a change of life, change of job, change of relationship, relocation. It really does speak to starting over. Now, if there were cards, a lot of heavy-duty sword cards of pain and loss in here, maybe it could be a death card, but often not. It really is like a new beginning, end of the old, let's bring in the new points of view. I'm shedding the old skin. So it's really more of a state of being. And here we go with temperance. And this is patience. You're developing patience in this cycle, that ultimately what you want, the pouring of the water between the cups, which is very positive, you know, that what you want, you're going to get. And if it's a relationship, yes. If it's well-being in your family, yes. If it's fertility, yes. It pretty much promises that what you want and what you're seeking, you're going to get, but you do have to mix the waters, and you do have to be patient while things organize. So this does indicate the person is having to develop patience and inner temperance with their moments so that they can get to the outcome. And I tend to think this goes a lot with relationships. It doesn't have to be romantic, but if you pair the Three of Cups with this card, it does talk about goodness being restored in a relatively soon period of time. The devil, of course, I don't ascribe to the idea of devil or Satan or anything like that, but to me, this talks about sexuality, talks about materialism. It talks about really being extraordinarily drawn to these things, whether it's in a person or in your life. You know, maybe you have a shopping addiction or a sexual addiction to a person or whatever. It really talks about being influenced heavily by your physical needs or attachments. And if you pair this with the Five of Swords, it does indicate some stressful money times. The Tower, this is one of the more difficult cards in the deck. When you see this come into your experience, or if you're reading for someone, you know, a lot of times people who know the Tarot will say, oh, I'm having a Tower moment. And the traditional meaning is breaking down the old to rebuild the new. And we've all had this in our lives, where whether it's a relationship that ended or a job that ended, or we've had to move or whatever it is, we've recognized that we're at the end of the road in a certain circumstance, and we got to throw it all away, start from scratch and rebuild. So it does talk about a new beginning, but the Tower moment does happen. You're in the middle of having maybe losses or saying a lot of goodbyes, or it could even be a physical malady of some sort. You know, maybe you drank a lot or something and you have cirrhosis of the liver, and now you're dealing with that. But then you come out the other side and all of a sudden you're eating healthy, and you know, you start to get vitality back. So that's sort of the nature of the Tower card. But it's not, when this is around, it's usually not pleasant. Now, this is one of the most positive cards in the deck for everything: love, money, abundance of all forms. I mean, it's just the promise of goodness. And you see that big giant gold star, and the water's pouring, and the freedom that you feel in this card. And paired with the Six of Pentacles, it really assures wealth. Paired with the Ten of Wands, it gives you a time frame, that an answer to your question, or that things are going to turn around quickly. And usually that's within a couple of days. If there's a Nine of Swords next to this card, it talks about coming out of a dark time, and soon things will rearrange, and that's usually within a week's time. And there's other pairings that can go with this card, but it's a positive omen when you see this, and depending on a person's question will determine how you interpret. The Moon, this is a challenging card in many ways. This paired with the Two of Swords almost always indicates illness of some sort, whether it's short-term or long-term will depend on many factors. It also indicates a time to go inward, time to shore up your reserves, listen to your instincts, your intuition. It is the card of the psychic. Everybody's psychic to varying degrees, but it does talk about really learning to listen, really opening your heart, opening your mind, and really listening to what, needs to come to you. And I know whenever I'm ill, I do some of my best spiritual work during that time. I really listen, I really hear things I've been ignoring, or I hear things that I wasn't able to hear when I was running around full speed ahead. So there's a lot of opportunity in this card, but it tends to have a lot of heaviness attached to it. This is one of the best cards in the deck. Whenever I see this, I'm jumping for joy because I am happy. Something's coming, whether it's like, oh my gosh, that job I wanted, oh my gosh, something really wonderful that is making me really happy today. One of those celebratory moments is coming, whether it's love or whether it's money, whatever, there's a celebratory moment coming. Paired with the Two of Swords, it gives you a little bit of a time frame, probably a week, maybe two, but it really lets you know that good stuff is here. Your manifestation has arrived. Judgment is more of a spiritual card to me, and we're at the end of a cycle, and we've learned our lessons, and we have a new awareness, and now the world is beginning to open up. That's what Judgment means to me, and when I've seen this come up. If you see this with fives or a Four of Swords, it really speaks to the promise of a new life, a new opportunity, but you've probably come out of something difficult. But it is a very positive card, and you're learning stuff. You've probably really broadened your awareness through wherever you've come. And so now those who have done their hard work and stayed true and right relationship to goodness are going to experience that. And then, of course, the World, this is a wonderful card to have, but it will often, what's going on will be determined by the major or the minor arcana, paired with the Ace of Swords and the Ten of Pentacles. It might indicate a pregnancy. Ten of Pentacles next to the World, money's coming. You are going to be wealthy in your life. The plans that you're thinking about, they're going to be successful. If there's a 10 of Cups next to the World, you're probably getting married. If there's an Ace of Pentacles with the 10 of Cups and the World, you are definitely getting married. With the Four of Wands next to the World, you're involved in some type of creative endeavor that is going to be successful. It's just such a great card. So you want to see this. And of course, depending on the question that your person's asking, will determine many factors. All right, so there you have it. And that's it for the major arcana. And now we'll move into the minor.